The information provided here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. We strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional to address your specific needs. We are not liable for any decisions made based on the content provided. Elevate, an audio series by Above It.
This episode of Elevate is brought to you by Zentistry, business, wellness and beyond. Follow Zentistry and join our Zentistry social circle.
Here's your host, dentist, investor, mum and coach for health professionals, Dr. Vicky Prokopiou.
Welcome to today's Elevate podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to host Maria-Stella, the trailblazing founder of Work and Be Well. What a beautiful name. Beyond being a health and wellness advocate, Maria-Stella stands out as a certified holistic wellness and life coach with a profound passion for uplifting women's health and well-being. As an international voice on holistic health and wellness and an executive contributor for Brains magazine, she extends her influence far and wide. Her commitment to nurturing the next generation shines through her work as a Raise Youth mentor, guiding young lives towards healthier horizons. Maria-Stella, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome to Elevate. You are a woman of my mission. I absolutely love that.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you for having me. I've really been looking forward to having this conversation because I'm absolutely passionate about looking after the wellness of women, and particularly women in the healthcare space, because we like to do it all and we sometimes forget about our own well-being.
In this episode, Maria-Stella brings to the forefront her life's mission, empowering women to embrace their healthiest and most fulfilling lives. She expertly navigates the complexities faced by women, particularly those in the health profession. Her philosophy transcends the mere pursuit of balance, advocating for a life brimming with energy and joy, even amidst all the whirlwind of our daily routines. Our discussion with Maria-Stella promises to be enlightening for health professionals seeking to blend holistic wellness practices into their life, offering innovative strategies to fend off burnout and boost overall happiness. It's what we're searching for, aren't we? Her approach deeply anchors in personal dedication, the power of community, and that's huge, isn't it? Motivates us to reach for our peak potential professionally and personally. So let's step into this enriching conversation with Maria-Stella and explore the holistic strategies and insights destined to revolutionize your approach to life and work. We don't often ask for help. I know I've been burnt out, and can you tell us your experience with burnout or what got you into coaching?
Yeah, so I suppose I'll start with how I got into coaching, and as a result of my own experience with burnout a few years ago, and what that looked like for me. So it was a really, I think, clear moment in my life where I realized I just had to do something and I had to make changes in my own life. So I loved my job, and I had a family. I was working in the healthcare industry, but in a corporate position, and I had 3 kids and a partner who also worked in healthcare in the clinical space and was therefore a shift worker. And so life was really busy because I was working, I was coming home, having 3 kids to look after, and sometimes with my partner being on shift work, it meant that it just didn't stop. So I loved everything about life, had a great little family, and I loved my job, and everything was great. But I think what I didn't realize is that deep down, and I can only say this now when I tell you about my experience of burnout, is that deep down I was actually constantly stressed, but I had this front that I had it all under control. Because, to be honest, I think when I look back now too, I was a bit of a perfectionist. I was someone that liked to be in control because I didn't want anything to go wrong, because then it just meant there was more stuff I had to handle. But deep down, I was probably quite stressed. And to be stressed is okay as long as you have breaks from stress. And I think what happened with me, I was constantly traveling on this, line of high stress. And it got to a point where I think I was ignoring kind of all the signs that my body was telling me to slow down because I was really exhausted. I was starting to get really tired. I was starting to get demotivated in my role. I was finding it difficult to get up in the morning and get interested in going to work. And a few things started to fall behind. And I think the turning point for me was one day when I did come home from work. I've told this story heaps of times, and I literally walked in, sat down on the kitchen chair and dropped all my stuff. And I just looked over to the kitchen and thought, oh my God, I still need to prepare dinner. And that was the most overwhelming thing. And I just lost it. I felt like I just couldn't do it. I could not move my body off the chair. It was almost like it was telling me, no, enough is enough. Just you need to now just start looking after yourself. And so for me, that's when I think I realized I was burnt out, even though I had probably been burnt out for a long time, but just missed all the signals or ignored them or just thought, no, I've got this all under control. And it wasn't until I got really to that point that I thought I can't go on that way. And having experienced that, I then started to think about how I could shift my own well-being and implemented a number of strategies. And when I saw how well that worked for me and how that changed my life around, I thought, this is now what I want to be able to do for other women. And so I made the decision to coach other women and particularly focus on burnt out women or women who want to prevent burnout because they live busy lives, but they don't know how to do it because in a busy life, we don't know how to implement some changes or we don't know where to start. It becomes overwhelming. So I decided that, yeah, that was it for me, and went on to get my certification in holistic life and wellness coaching and made that decision to quit that career and now help other women achieve the same thing that I did. And not in achieving it, but make them realise too that they need to, it's okay to look after yourself, even when you're looking after everything and everyone else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. It mirrors a lot of my life as well, because you go through something and then you think, well, others around me, and you can identify it, can't you? You can pick it a mile away. And it's not just about burnout. This is about quality of life. This is about that holistic approach to wellness. And as health professionals, we often forget ourselves. And I tell everyone, and I think we were having this conversation earlier, I often speak with potential clients and they are clearly burnt out or clearly at a point where something needs to change, but they find it a bit overwhelming to make that next step, or they don't reach out for help, or if they do, they talk themselves out of it, saying, no, I'm stuck in this little cycle forever. And you're not. And you and I are examples of that. You're not stuck in anything.
No, absolutely not stuck in anything. And that's what I've learned. You know, there's always a way. There's always a way out. So where you think that things can't change, you know, that life is just busy and we can't make changes to it to look after ourselves. Believe me, there is a way to do it. And if it's not something that you're able to figure out, then get the support like a wellness coach to help you do that, because it is absolutely possible.
Yep, absolutely. And it is. And I remember you reminded me of a story when I was working in my practice in Coonabarabra and overworked. I started to have ailments everywhere and I actually had to go to hospital. But one day my staff found me lying on the ground in the surgery floor between patients. I just had enough. I couldn't move, but I had responsibility. And that's what drives us sometimes, doesn't it?
Correct, yeah. And that was my experience too. You know, I came home from work and I just felt like I couldn't move. I sat down, I couldn't move, but I was overwhelmed because I knew I had to get out of there and keep going. And I had these responsibilities. I had 3 kids and I had to, you know, help them with their homework. I had to sort their dinner out. I had to do all these things. It was almost like I don't have time to sit here and not do anything. It was almost like if you stopped to have a break, you got the mum guilts, or you weren't doing a proper job. Or sometimes I would even be as silly as like, well, if everyone else is managing, why can't I manage? There's lots of women out there working, juggling kids and running 1,000 miles an hour. So why can't I be the same? You know, because we have this super mum title, which I believe we exist. There are super mums out there, but sometimes we've got to be careful that we don't take that literal, where we feel like we have to be able to do everything and constantly be good at everything and have everything under control and perfect, because that's not necessarily what supermum is. Supermum is also recognizing your own needs and then giving yourself permission to take time to rest, to recharge, to be at your best, because you're not going to be looking after others or looking after your career in the best possible way if you're not looking after yourself in the best possible way.
Absolutely right. And that leads me on to, and I'm a huge advocate for this, you need to take care of yourself as a professional, as a mum, as a dad, as a parent, in order to be able to give back to your clients, your patients. So what do you think about that and how that might enhance the care you can give to your patients or clients, Maria?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think with anyone, if you're not operating at your personal best, then it's going to be pretty difficult to be able to serve others or help others in your role as a healthcare professional at your personal best, right? So I remember reading about research that was done on some doctors in Australia, over 700 doctors that were tired and exhausted. And their biggest concern was that because they were going to work tired and exhausted, it wasn't so much their own well-being, but it was they were concerned about the risk they were placing their patients at because they were treating them exhausted. And the risk then of making an error or a misjudgment, and you know, I'm not medically trained here, but this is what the research said, is that that's what concerned them, that one day they'll go to work, they'll be so tired that they're going to actually have an error in judgment in treating that patient. I know that I certainly wouldn't want any healthcare professional looking after a loved one that's unwell if they're not operating, you know, under their personal best, if they're exhausted, if they're tired because they've worked long hours. And believe me, I've heard about it, having worked in healthcare for many, many years, the number of nurses, doctors that are pulling long hours and, you know, working on their patients, that surely that's got to be a risk, not just to themselves, that they might injure themselves because they're exhausted, but a risk to their patients, you know, in their treatment. So 100%, yeah, agree with you there.
Absolutely. And it comes down to the environment. I know I worked as a pharmacist, a graduate pharmacist at Westmead Hospital, and I saw the hierarchy of all the doctors and nurses and how hard they all worked and the lack of team members. And there's always this massive push for people to get into the health industry and to learn and get those qualifications. And then, yes, as our population grows, of course, we're going to need more professionals, health professionals out there. And the environment plays such a big role. I know now in private practice, I've got control about my work culture and how much I am rostering my team on, for example. And hospitals may not have that control. So that can be a bit tricky, I think. And you said you worked in the corporate world. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I worked for a large healthcare organisation, but in a corporate role. For a large part of my career, it was in a hospital, and then I moved to the corporate service area. And look, I think the culture there was amazing. They had some really strong values, some really strong mission, and you could see it there every day. But I kind of think that in the lead up to my own burnout, and I do believe burnout is a two-way thing. So I don't believe it's necessarily solely someone's, own responsibility. I do believe it can also be organisational or industry as well. But I'm not saying it's purely just industry or organisational. I think it's a bit of both. So whilst I had let go of my own well-being, I think the fact that at the time the organisation, or particularly the area where I was working, was going through a lot of restructure and a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of changes, that also contributes to burnout, because burnout is not necessarily working really long hours. It's also like the mental strain, the emotional strain, not just necessarily physical. So we tend to think that, burnt out, you're tired, you're working long hours, it's a physical thing, but the mental and the emotional strain. So if the culture at work is not right and it's not supporting, the people that work for that organisation, then that's also going to be a contributor to burnout as well. And so I think for me, there was that period of time where that culture really had shifted. It wasn't the same. There seemed to be a real shift around kind of the support and those mission and those values, which really held me working for them for such a long time, because that's what I valued in my job. And that definitely impacted on my own mental fitness, if you like, being able to go to work and feel like I'm doing a great job. But it was really hard when there was so much uncertainty and all those mission and values lacking, because sometimes that's what we need to hear, that we're doing a good job, that, that we're being supported to help us get to work and feel happy at work, not just us focusing on our own well-being, but having that well-being support come from who you work for.
For your energy levels to stay high, yes, you need sleep. Yes, you need breaks. But the motivation, sounds like the motivation's what you're alluding to as well. And what role does motivation play for, let's say, for women? Okay, us women, we've got a different set of challenges. It's very different, our role, to what it was for our parents, and then the generation before, because we're working women. We've got careers. We're career women. What insights do you have?
Motivation is huge, because when I think about burnout, so we talk about burnout, one of the biggest signs that you're burnt out is obviously energy, exhaustion, depleted. But the second one is motivation. And we're not just talking about motivation at work. That can be motivation even in your home space, in your personal life. So you lose that motivation, that get up and go in the morning, that you're excited to go to work, you get up, get ready and you go, that wanes. It becomes more like a chore that you have to get up, get yourself ready and get yourself to work. And then you're just waiting for the clock to tick over at the end of the day to get home again. But the motivation at home can wane as well. It may be that on the weekends, when you used to look forward to, hanging out with your friends or doing certain things, that spark just doesn't exist anymore. You don't feel motivated to get dressed up and go out with friends, or to do those things that you used to enjoy. Sometimes it's, if you used to take pleasure in doing certain hobbies and now they just don't feel that exciting anymore. So that motivation is so important, because you can lose it, like I said, not just in your career, but also in your home and your personal life. And you end up then just disassociating from the people around you, from loved ones, from your friends, your work colleagues. And then that starts to affect your relationships. And then when you start to affect your relationships, when we all know when we don't have great relationships, that affects your happiness and your fulfillment. So it's like this big snowball effect. So motivation is massive.
How can someone maintain their motivation or keep their energy levels up?
I think when it comes to keeping motivation, energy levels, it is a holistic approach that has to happen. So that's why I do holistic wellness. I'm not just a wellness coach. And when we talk about holistic, we're looking at a person as a whole. So it's looking at a number of elements in their life that we review, and that plan and what we look at has to be very personalized. So yes, there can be a blanket rule as far as how do you get someone's energy and motivation, and that might be looking at things such as how much do they exercise, what's their nutrition like, how much time do they actually spend outside or doing things that they enjoy, mindset, all of that. But then as far as what those specific strategies are in those areas, it's very personalized to each person, because it may be that someone is already doing quite well with their nutrition, but they're really lacking in the exercise or the movement part or their mindset or their purpose. And that's affecting their energy and their motivation. So it's no one size fits all, but there is a number of elements, up to 12 elements, that we look at to then look at, okay, well, where are we unbalanced in those elements? Where do we need to focus on? What strategies do we need to put in place to get those balanced? Because the other important thing is, when we look at these 12 elements, they all affect each other. You know, so if you are really good at exercising, but you're not eating the best, or perhaps your purpose is lacking, but yet you do really well when it comes to managing your nutrition and your exercise, but you lack purpose, so you still feel really unbalanced. Perhaps you're in a really bad relationship and that's affecting your career because you're going to work stressed about the relationship you're in, or perhaps you've got poor financial well-being and that's stressing you out and affecting the relationship with your partner or what have you. So it is very tailored, but I think when it comes to energy and motivation, we look at those 12 elements, we look at what the challenge is for that person, see how they've what areas in their life are unbalanced, and then specifically have a plan to help them to go forward. I think what's really important though is that we need to take things quite slowly, so simple, sustainable also, and just with some patience and time, because we don't want to overwhelm anyone with making major changes to their lives as well. So it's about creating what's manageable in their already busy, high-pressured life. There's no magic wand.
You're listening to Elevate, an audio series by Above It.
There's no magic wand. You've still got to put the effort in. So if you're being coached or you've got being mentored, then you've still got to put the effort in. And yes, it does require you to take time out to do that. But that's what you and I help people with, don't we? To make that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a whole heap of time. People get put off because they go, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy. But that's what a coach will help you with, to work out what fits in your schedule, what you enjoy, how to create that time, how to make that time. We don't want to overwhelm them any more than they're already overwhelmed. So we're not going to place massive pressure on them to make massive changes in such a short period of time. It's all about having small, simple, sustainable steps and having a coach there to keep you accountable, because stats show that when you have a coach, when you've got a goal and you've got a coach by your side keeping you accountable and supporting you and guiding you, you're 95% likely to actually reach that goal, as opposed to anywhere between 5 and 50% of reaching it on your own. So huge changes there, just to have an accountable person by your side. And I think what you mentioned before is absolutely true. It is like a partnership. A coach is there to help and guide you, but you have to be able to do the work. So at the end of the day, the way that I see it, it's like, the way I explain it is, if you go to the gym and your PT is telling you you need to do XYZ exercises and you don't, and in 6 months' time you haven't achieved your weight loss goal, that's not on your PT, that's on you. They can help guide and support you, but if you're not going to put in the effort and show up on the mornings that they've asked you to show up, nothing's going to change, or you're not going to get the results that you wanted. So
That is so true. The commitment. I know a couple of hours ago, I went to a lunchtime Pilates class. And before that, I thought, I'm just so busy. I've got to keep doing my paperwork or catching up or doing things. And I thought, Vicky, commitment. You've committed. And then when you've got a financial commitment, you've paid for it, you're like, I'm going. Otherwise, I missed my class. It's beyond the 4-hour cancellation time. And I feel so great having gone there. And you feel so great. Yeah.
You do. You never turn around and go, wish I didn't go. That was a waste of my time. 99% of the time you're going to come out and go, God, I feel so good, or I'm so glad I got there, right? And over time, it just becomes part of your routine. You don't even think about it. If I can quickly just take a moment to share my experience with that. So when I was burnt out and I knew I needed to get my energy levels back by actually exercising more, because my job was very much sitting at a desk or in a meeting room or not very active at all. I thought, where am I going to get this time to go and exercise? And I just started literally with a 3-minute run up and down my driveway or my backyard. That is all I felt I could do, energy-wise, time-wise. In the end, I was getting my daughter to do it with me because I thought, well, if that's the way we can get through then we'll do it. A few years ago now, but now it's my daily routine that I get up and I go to the gym, and I love it. It's social, it's fun. I found the right gym for me. I feel great afterwards. I drive there, I drive back. It's an hour out of my day, but I feel like if I haven't done that now, my day hasn't started. And on the days I don't get there, I notice the difference. But I didn't put that pressure on myself 3 years ago to just get myself into an hour of exercise every day, because I think if I gave myself that goal, I wouldn't have achieved it at all, and I'd probably be still where I was back then now. But for me, just 3 minutes was my starting point. I thought if I can just get through 3 minutes of running up and down the driveway, then I'm all good. And I slowly built on that. So, it doesn't have to start off as a massive goal. It's just making those small, simple, sustainable changes and increasing them as you go along. And then it just becomes part of your day.
Yep.
And you don't have to think you need to find your time. It becomes part of your day.
Have you found a change in people that you're speaking with through even these last 1.5 years, 2 years, let's say? People are thinking differently and they want different things out of their life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People want different things out of their life, and it's different for everyone. So although I focus on burnout, I've had people come to me and they want to be coached because they kind of lost their way after, that. They were like, I'm not now sure what my purpose in life is. I kind of feel I need to rediscover myself or start doing something I actually love, or I'm not sure where I want to go. I'm a bit lost. It's almost like we had this shift in our thinking of like, wow, life can change at any moment. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to go through life, I'm living it the best that I can and doing something that I love doing. That might have been even part of the reason why I decided just to bite the bullet and leave that career that I had for so long to become a coach, because it was like, no, this is what I want to do and life's too short. And I feel that is now what I want to do. There was no focus on having this career and this title and this role that was, all about, well, look at me, because it wasn't about that anymore. It was about, I just want to serve people. I just want to get out there and help others and help them realize too that they can be supported, that they are well and truly worthy of looking after themselves, because I think we've still got a long way to go with that when it comes to working mums and getting rid of that mum guilt. And the 3 things that I often talk about is that you need to give yourself permission. You need to give yourself permission to say it is okay to put time aside in my day to do this, even if it's taking away time from your responsibilities at home or what have you. So you need to give yourself permission. You need to be also patient, because things take time. So you're not going to achieve results in 3 months' time. Just like, again, if I use a gym or, any exercise example, you're not going to get your results in a month's time or 3 months' time, but it might take longer than that. So you need to be patient. And I think you need to be persistent, because it's easy to really give up when you're not. It may seem a little bit too hard, but that's where a coach comes in, and that's where the support comes in. You got someone to chat to, you've got someone that can listen to you, someone that can hold you accountable. And then the possibility of achieving that goal is so much greater. But support is massive, because I think, I just think when we've got that support behind us, that's what drives us as well.
And that's how people achieve their health goals with the coach at the gym. I don't know why more people don't have coaches in their lives, because we all need that support. And especially if it's coming from woman to woman, for example, as well, or from mum to mum, you live and breathe everything, and you've been through everything, or similar experiences that someone might be going through right now, and you don't have to do it alone. And I think that's a key message here. Power is in our community, and I know you're all about community.
Sometimes what the issue is too is that with some of us mum who feel like we need to be doing it all, it's really difficult to ask for support or for help. So we don't, and we try and just do it all ourselves. And sometimes we see asking for support or help as a weakness, but it's not. It's actually a strength to be able to reach out and ask for support. It's not a weakness at all. And anyone who can do that and do that quite proudly should be proud of themselves, because it's not easy to go, hey, you know what, I actually need help with this, or I need someone to support me with this. And I still think sometimes it is difficult for women to even acknowledge that they need support, because as a coach, they've expressed that to me, that they haven't told friends or family that they're seeing someone to be coached, because they feel that that shows that they have a weakness. So again, it's a mind shift change. And the coaching that I do, one of the elements we look at is mindset, because mindset is a massive part, because you can tell someone to do X or guide them to do X, Y, Z, but if their mindset to do it is not there, or if the right mindset's not there, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of ego comes into resistance. Maybe we can touch a little bit on ego. We've all got it, and health professionals have it. Everyone's got it. I've had it. And sometimes it can actually stop you from doing the wonderful things in your life.
It can do. And maybe that was part of my problem too, because I felt like I used to get a lot of comments around how people used to say to me, God, how do you, have a family? How do you work full time? How do you do all this? And yet you just seem so calm, cool and collected every day, and et cetera, et cetera. And I used to go, I don't see that, but okay. But then, when I was struggling, I almost felt like, oh my God, I've got to keep up this persona. It's like, I can't let it down. And I think the way to describe it is a bit like that. What do they say? The beautiful duck swimming along, looking above the water, like they're all under control, but underneath the little feet are going like 1,000 miles per hour. And so, ego probably does come into it. Back then, it was all about us women coming back to having to have this sense that we've got it all under control. And if you're a perfectionist like I was, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I'm not saying I was perfect in everything I did, but I wanted everything to be right, and I wanted to be in control, because I didn't want anything to go wrong, because I had enough I had to deal with, that if I had to deal with more because I hadn't gotten something right, then that was just going to add more onto my plate, and I just didn't want to do it. So I mean perfectionism from that point of view, because I'm not the kind of person where I feel like I need to come across as perfect. I just wanted everything organized. I wanted everything under control. Mm-hmm. Because when you've got 3 kids and you're running them around, and you've got a family, you've got to work, you have to make sure your time management, your organizational skills were like on point. So that's what I mean by perfectionism. I've got this. Deep down though, we're going, what the heck?
and there might be a little bit of a stigma with coaching that you mentioned before too, and I see it as well. It's like they feel it's a bad thing. I'm like, well, everyone's got coaches. The most successful people have coaches and mentors. What are you on about?
Of course. I know fitness coaches who have their own fitness coaches.
Thank you so much for sharing everything. I've got one last thing I'd love to ask you about. Yes, I can ask you about lots of tips, but you've given us heaps of tips throughout this beautiful chat. One thing that's close to your heart and that I think is really important for our generations that are coming up to is your support of youths in schools, so the teens in your Raise Youth Mentor program that you're part of. Tell me more about that and tell us more, because I don't really know much about it and I'd love to find out.
Well, probably about 18 months ago, when I was on this journey of coaching adults, I thought I really want to be able to provide value to, young people as well. And I thought, and how can I do that? And I didn't feel I was really in a space where I was qualified to do that. But I thought, you know what, if I can do that in some other way, then I would. So I just researched out there if there was any organisations that I could be part of that could offer some sort of coaching or mentoring to kids. And Raise came up, and Raise is a national organisation that pretty much goes out to high schools and offers a fantastic mentoring program for kids that need support in their well-being. So I was very fortunate enough to apply, went through a training program, and then did my first year with Raise, and will be doing my second year this year in the Raise program. And I was allocated to a local high school. And that's just 1 hour a week where your mentee comes in and you just sit, and there's a program that you can follow that looks at several issues that kids in high school are going through at the moment that they can discuss with you if they would like. Or it's sometimes just being there for them and allowing them just to talk to you about whatever they want, or just maybe to hang out a bit and not necessarily talk much. So I did the Raise program, and I guess I decided I wanted to do that because I wanted to help someone, a young person. And if that meant the smallest change to get them through year 8, then I knew my job was done. But I think at the end of it, what I didn't realise was that I probably got so much more out of that, being in that program myself as an adult and as a mom, than what I was expecting to providing being in that program, if that makes sense. Because what I realised is that I had learnt so much from my mentee. I had hoped they had learnt a lot by having me in the program, and we don't always know. They might not always express that, but I had learnt so much from them. I had learnt about the things that kids in high school, early years of high school are going through. And whilst I had already seen my 2 oldest kids go through high school, that was like 17 years ago, and things had already shifted and changed so fast with what kids are going through now. And as a mum who's got a daughter who's now coming up to year 8, I feel like I'm so much more aware of what these kids are going through. And I think we do know a lot, particularly around social media and bullying and all this kind of stuff, but to actually sit down with someone every week and hear from their experiences what the issues are that they're going through, and you can be there to just offer either a listening ear or some support or some guidance, such a valuable program to be part of. And like I said, I went in there hoping to change someone's life, but I think it changed my life, probably even more so, because you just don't ever know what someone is going through, whether they're an adult or a young person, and they don't always have a parent that they can feel like they can go to and talk to. And so to be there for them and create that space for them to have someone to chat to is one of the most rewarding things you can give someone. So Raise is the organisation. So if anyone's interested, you can certainly go online and look them up, and I would definitely recommend it. It's, again, a time thing, I know, but honestly, when it becomes part of your day, it becomes part of your week, that you can be there for someone for 1 hour, it's worth everything.
I think it's absolutely beautiful, because my kids are only just starting primary school, so I haven't hit the teens yet. and I don't know what's coming. So thank you for giving a bit of insight on that. It has been absolutely beautiful chatting with you, Maria-Stella.
Thank you.
I think it's been gorgeous. And I think we've got a similar mission to support others, to help them, to elevate their life. This is what this podcast is all about. And I know many of the listeners here, many of our listeners have gotten some amazing tips or insights into what it's like to be coached as well, and what it can bring and how it can nourish themselves and their life too. I'd love for everybody to head over to Work and Be Well and check out Maria-Stella's beautiful work and how she can support you as well. And thank you so much, Maria-Stella. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. I've absolutely loved our conversation. Like, I could talk for hours on this topic and talk with you. So, yeah, hopefully your listeners got a lot out of it. I've certainly enjoyed it. And yeah, if they want to know how to get in touch with me, they just head over to the website, like you said, is workandbewell.com.au. There's a button there that they can have a chat with me. It's just complimentary. There's no obligation, just to have a chat. Or even if they would just want to ask a few more questions after having listened to this podcast, then absolutely they can do that through my website.
Oh, that's brilliant. And is there anything else you'd love to tell our listeners before you go?
I'll just reiterate what I said. You've got to give yourself permission to look after yourself, because if you're not looking after yourself, you can't be looking after others as well as you would love to, and to always think about living life at your personal best.
Give yourself permission. What a gorgeous, gorgeous message. Thanks so much, Maria-Stella, and I'll catch you in person, and we'll hopefully meet all of you beautiful listeners at some point too. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Vicky. Bye.
You've been listening to Elevate, an audio series by Above It. The information provided here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. We strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional to address your specific needs. We are not liable for any decisions made based on the content provided.